This video will introduce Lab 14, Rock, Paper, Scissors. Your program should incorporate a portion of the traditional rock, paper, scissors game. If you do not know how to play rock, paper, scissors, there is a link provided for you to Wikipedia that has the instructions for the game explained. So in your game, the program's user is playing the computer. And we are going to use a 1, 2, and a 3 to represent game pieces. So a 1 will always represent rock, a 2 will represent paper, and a 3 will represent scissors. So if the user enters 1, which represents rock, and the computer generates 2, which represents paper, the computer wins as paper covers rock. For 2 paper and 3 scissors, well, 3 wins because scissors cut paper. But since rock breaks scissors, 1 rock wins against 3 scissors. Your program will not yet determine who the winner is. That's coming up in a future assignment. So for now, you only need to generate a random number between 1 and 3 and store it as the computer's choice. And then you also have to read in the user's choice. Let's look at the program requirements. We must include proper comments and documentation. We must use self-documenting variable names. We must read in an unsigned integer that can be used as a seed value for the random number generator. And the seed value is the first value read in. So in the sample input, you'll see this 10 here. This is the seed value in this example input. So that's what that means in that bullet item. It's telling you that the seed value is always the first value that is read in. All right, this next bullet says to generate a random number between 1 and 3. And so for help generating a number between 1 and a maximum range, we're going to reference the program provided in Blackboard under Content, Module 3, Lesson 2, 1A, and it's called Random Num Between 1 and Max Range.cpp. So let's analyze that file and see what is happening and try to understand how to generate a number between 1 and a max range. Let's first start out by looking at the includes, these preprocessor directives. We are including IOStream, and we know from our experience that that is needed for CIN and COUT. Here's something new. We need to include cstdlib, which is cstdlib, and the reason we need that is because rand and srand are defined inside it. And then we also need to include ctime because the time function is defined inside it. As always, we still need our using namespace standard. So here's our main method. Processing starts there. And then we start the statements in the body of the main. The very first statement in line 10 is calling that time function that's defined in ctime and passing in a 0. What that is going to do is return the number of seconds that have ticked off since January 1st, 1970. So every time you run your program, a call to time will generate a new number because the number of seconds that have ticked off since January 1st, 1970 has changed. Now whatever that number is we are assigning it to our variable called seed. And then in the next statement we're defining 2 variables, max range and random number. In line 14, we are calling the function srand and passing in that seed variable. Now recall from line 10 that the seed variable holds the number of seconds that is ticked off since January 1st, 1970. So therefore, every time we run our program in line 14, we are seeding our random number generator with a new value. Now this is necessary because if you don't seed your random number generator, then every time you run your program, it will generate the same sequence of random numbers. So even if you seed it with a specific number, it's still going to always generate the same sequence of random numbers. But if you seed it with something different each time you run your program, then you cannot determine what a call to rand will generate. So let's look at line 18. So our program is supposed to generate a number between 1 and some given max range. So this is where we're getting that max range from. We are reading it in line 18. And then in line 21, we are calling rand. Remember, we seeded the random number generator. So each time we run our program, a call to rand will generate a new random number. Then, that's hard to read, but that is a percent sign. So we are modding by max range. So that is dividing the number returned by the rand function by max range, and the returned result is the remainder. All right, we're adding 1 to that and then storing that result in random number. So let's think about how this works. If we want to generate a random number between 1 and 10, then we would read in a 10 for our max range. And let's think about what happens when you divide by 10, because you're always dividing by your max range. So if you divide by 10 any number, your remainder will always be between 0 and 9. You can't have a remainder 10 or any number greater than 10, because then max range goes into the number another time. So the remainder, when dividing by 10, is always between 0 and 9. So this result, rand mod max range, will always be some number between 0 and 9. Now, if we add 1 to that result, then we're always going to have a number between 1 and 10. So random number then will always be some number between 1 and 10. Realize that a 10 was read into max range. That is why the random number is always between 1 and 10. But this formula will work for any integer value that is read into max range. And then in line 24, we are outputting random number is a random number in the range of 1 to max range. This is that 10 value. Its value is random number. Well, random number is that number we randomly generated between the range of 1 and 10. Okay, that explains how this program works. We need to take pieces and parts of this program and put them in our program, because we are trying to generate a number between 1 and 3, because our game pieces will be either 1 for rock, 2 for paper, or 3 for scissors. So let's go back to our programming assignment, and let's go to the next bullet item. Then we'll start in our coding window. Read in a number between 1 and 3 that represents the user's choice. So the user can pick a 1, 2, or a 3. Those are the only valid choices for the user. And then our program has to output the generated number in the specified format. So when a 10 is read in for the seed, this is the seed, and a 1 is read in for the user's choice, your program will produce the output, your entry 1, that's the user's choice, and computer generated, :space, and then the result of that is 2. This is the result of the random number generator. Let's go down to the coding window and let's get started on our C++ program. So in this window, you need to make sure you include the 3 preprocessor directives that were in the sample program. So I'm just going to give you a comment that says include preprocessor directives. And then we're going to get started in our main method here. All right. if we go back to that program, remember that we were able to seed the random number generator with a call to time, and then what that did is every time we ran our program, we generated a unique number with our ran function. But we don't want to do that in this program. And the reason is because I need to know if you're properly generating the right random number. So you're going to be reading in a value that is seeding the random number generator. So every time you run your program, the first thing you need to do is read in a seed value. So let's go ahead and get ourselves an unsigned integer. And let's call it seed. This is the variable we're going to use to read in a seed value for our srand function. Now we also need some variables for max value and min value, because remember, we're trying to generate a random number between a max and a min. So we're going to actually just use some variables here, max value and min value, and set them to 3 and 1 respectively, because I can then use my variables instead of hard coding the 3 and the 1, and my code will actually allow me to generate a number between any range. All I would have to do is change my max value and my min value. All right, I also need 2 variables for the computer choice and the user choice. Let's make those integers as well. And I forgot to put a comment up here. Let me go up and add that. This is our variable definitions. All right, we've got that. Now let's go ahead and seed the random number generator. Remember I said that we are going to be reading in a seed value, so let's do that. And the reason we do this is so that I can grade your program. You would never want to read in a seed value if you're trying to randomly generate a number, because this allows me to generate an expected sequence of random numbers. Okay, next I need to call srand and pass in that value seed that I just read in. Now I know what your program should generate when you call the rand function. All right, next let's go ahead and get some input from the user. All right, cn greater than, and let's read into user choice. This is where we're going to store the user's choice. Now we need to generate the computer's choice, right? And the computer's choice needs to be a call to rand, and then we need to mod that by, that's a %, max value minus min value plus 1. So what this is doing is taking that 3 that we put in max value, subtracting out the 1, that leaves us a 2, and adding 1 to that. That gives us a 3. So therefore, if I'm dividing by 3, my modulus operator will always return a value. Because I'm dividing by 3 here, it's always going to return a value between 0 and 2, because I am returning the remainder of the division. But remember that my computer choice really needs to be between 1 and 3. So let's add back in the min value, and then my equation will always result in a number between 1 and 3. So this is how I have generated a random number in the specified range. Now you need one more step here, and that is to output both the user's choice and the computer's choice. And I'll let you do that. That's a couple of cout statements. So the first one, once again, needs to be the user's choice. So you can say your entry, :space, and then output the user's choice. And the second one needs to be the computer's choice. So you can output it in your second cout statement, computer generated, :space, and then the computer choice. Okay, so I did the majority of this program for you. You do need to go ahead and finish it out and then submit it to Blackboard and see if you get your points. And don't forget that if you have any questions, you can Contact your instructor or one of the tutors. This concludes the video for Lab 14, Rock, Paper, Scissors.